you checking for movies?
No, the weird thing is I don't know what's happened with you walking up the stairs, but it started recording automatically as you've done it.
Oh.
I hadn't pressed anything. I wasn't leaned forward.
Okay, seriously, what happened to us last night?
Yeah, okay, so we're having a bit of a weird night, I can't lie. We both had rather odd dreams. I won't go into mine because it's not pleasant. Yours was just very real, and us.
Yes.
Mine was very real.
But set in the same place.
Yeah, but you sat in the same room in this house. And then there's been 3 or 4 things today where we've both quite successfully predicted what's coming next, even though it isn't necessarily an obvious or predictable thing. So shortly after making this video, he's going to be buying a lottery ticket, possibly 2. We pick a set of numbers each. I don't know. So yeah, next week's video, directed by Steven Spielberg. If I'm bugging only, eh? Anyway, none of this minutes and 10 seconds is what you're here for, because you are probably here to see what we thought of this week's episode of Hawkeye. Spoilers herein, because it's difficult to talk about 35 minutes and not give anything away.
It felt a lot shorter than 35 minutes, actually.
I'm guessing that's what it was. I don't talk while I dick about with the remote control.
So
43 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So way shorter than 43 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I said to you at the end, I said, "Oh, is that it?" I was
yeah.
like, "Oh, great, it's ended."
That was quick.
I suppose the car chase was probably a good 10 minutes.
Yeah, true. And then the whole bit leading up to the car chase as well was probably a good half of the episode.
Yeah. So echoes. I mean, obviously,
Oh, you're reading the title.
It's the title on the screen.
There's how much attention I was paying.
Well, there we go. Obviously, we open up with the backstory for Echo, who incidentally is getting her own series on Disney Plus, I think next year. Certainly, it's one of the titles that's been announced as an upcoming property. And I have to say, at this stage, all I know about Echo is what I've had a quick Wikipedia at last week after her introduction, and what you've seen in the episode so far. So basically nothing. I can't remember what the hell I read on Wikipedia, and and I've just watched the episode.
She was a hero connected to, was it Daredevil and things like that?
Yeah, I think it is that whole thing.
Like Defenders and...
Yeah, which would tie in when she was in school and you just saw the hand, and I was like, oh, they're not showing you who the face of that hand is, and you went like Kingpin. I'm like, well, that would, yes, that's quite a possibility.
So she's given the whole suit aspect as well.
Yeah. So that's interesting because obviously, I mean, to my mind, certainly pre-current state of Marvel and things, I've always thought of Kingpin as a Spider-Man villain more than anything else. I think it's just because I think he was in like cartoons and stuff when I was younger. And I appreciate, obviously, in an ideal world, all of Marvel is one big happy thing. So universe.
He's largely, I think, a New York villain. So yes, Spider-Man, but also things like Daredevil,
right?
Defenders, just because again, it's
Luke Cage, Iron Fist,
yeah,
those Netflix series that don't mean anything anymore.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay. So that's, we open up with say Echo in her background, and it just kind of rolls out from there. And it brings us back to where we last were, and then it rolls on from there with, I would say predominantly this episode was mostly Tracksuit Gang, really. But again, tonally, I thought they've got this really lovely balance between action comedy and meaningful character shit. Dealing with the sign language aspects, not even dealing with, but just showing Echo's prosthetic and stuff.
It just was.
Yeah.
There
was no like, oh, I've got a prosthetic leg. Yeah. There's no. It's just
it's just an aspect.
You could almost like not notice it, and it's fine. Is the best way I can describe that.
Which is, of course, how it should be.
Yeah, which is great. I think a really forward-thinking bit of writing there from the team. Obviously, the hearing thing comes in slightly more, because it's much more visual, and also plot wise, they're bringing that as the link to Hawkeye. So I think that's that's slightly different, but also it doesn't feel forced, which is a good thing. But again, I just thought it was really funny. I love the fact that the whole point is I'm not going to go and wreck a whatever the car is, and the car just gets completely fucked. That was absolutely class. In fact, that whole chase, just from a technical point of view, that was phenomenal.
Oh yeah, the whole camera.
Yeah.
Mirroring the action.
There were a couple of bits where, and I think it's because of how I choose to have our TV settings. I have it on that kind of hyper real setting, so everything looks like you've gone out and seen it with your own eyes, as opposed to looking like it's been treated for film, which sometimes ruins effects. Because things like, there was a couple of points during the car chase, and there's a bit where at the end, it might not have been, but what it appeared to look like in the sort of second and a half that it was there, it looked like you could tell it was a 2D painting at the end of the street to suggest that it went on longer than it does.
I will just point out at this point, I didn't notice that, but again, I mean, part of me is tempted to say that some of it could also be that you process some stuff visually different to how I process stuff visually.
Yeah.
Like there's things you pick up on that I don't. For example, for those of you that obviously, was it the three of you that watched sort of...
Hi, Helen.
Hi, Helen. That watched the last video, there's the bit that, which I must admit, I meant to go back and rewatch it, see if that is the case, but you talked about the mum like pocketing or kind of hand pocketing something, which I didn't notice at all. So it could be an element of that, but I don't necessarily disagree. It's just, again, for me, I usually get too caught up in what's going on overall to actually necessarily sort of spot like minutiae like that sort of thing. So I wouldn't say
I could also be wrong.
Jarring at all.
No. But again, so back to the car sequence. Hilarious that she was pulling arrows out at different times and
and not knowing what they do.
Yeah. Even though I thought it was very nice that they just gave the audience that little wink of the Pym arrow.
Yeah.
We were all like, oh, we know what this is going to do, or we know one of two things it's going to do. And that didn't disappoint.
Good, yeah.
But yeah, loved that whole sequence. Thought that was just technically phenomenal, as well as massively entertaining. I thought it was class. Again, we've sort of said, the balance, the humour, sort of, it's something this series in particular is really getting right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, okay, so I mean, the biggest point is it was a 43-minute episode, and I didn't feel like I'd sat through half an hour.
No, it
rattled
along.
Felt
like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it rattled. I mean, it felt like you'd watched like a Simpsons or a Kath and Kim, or and just that's a talent. I mean, flip side of that is, it's like when you go and see a 3-hour Lord of the Rings film at the cinema, and before you go in, you're like, oh god, am I getting halfway through this and need a shit and whatever. And then all of a sudden the credits roll and you're like, oh, look at that, how did that? Have I really been here 3 hours? So same principle, I guess.
And then you try to stand up. And it's, yes, I have been here for 3 hours.
Yeah, true. You don't get sat on your couch for 43 minutes. But you were saying, maybe it's not quite the case actually, because you were saying you'd heard that after the first two, all the episodes are shorter.
Oh, yeah.
But actually not that much shorter, as it turns out anyway.
No, it was basically an article that I'd read. It's typical clickbaity nonsense. I really need to break the habit, because every time I read one of these clickbait articles, it just winds me up. Because,
don't read them.
Yeah, no, that's literally what I'm saying. But again, clickbait works because they'll usually. I mean, I'm getting better at it. I probably read like 1 in 10 articles now, rather than like 1 in 3 like I used to.
You'll never guess what the stars of Harry Potter look like now. Yes, I will. They're in everything still.
Yes. It's not quite that obvious, but basically I think it was one of those ones that was kind of going on about, disappointment in store for fans of Hawkeye. So I thought, what are they bitching about now? And it was basically just saying that, you know, for those that were expecting probably Falcon and Winter Soldier length, because they were like a good like 50 minutes to an hour, I think, fairly so, but obviously a shorter run. Whereas, you know, sort of WandaVision, I think, went for a more traditional 30-minute format, but you had more episodes. They were saying that Hawkeye was kind of moving more towards the WandaVision side of things. At the end of the day, I don't care, because I think what all of the series so far have shown, and again, Marvel, I think, is probably one of the few people that's still... Mandalorian, actually, to be fair, did it as well. Is that basically the episode length is the episode length. It'll be whatever it needs to be to tell that bit of the story. So whether that's 43 minutes, 27 minutes, 94 minutes, that's what it will be.
Which is so much better.
Yeah, and it's what it should be. Yeah, that's the whole benefit of like streaming.
So what's that on the side of... What's by your shoulder? What's that? What's this? What's going on? What's happening?
That's going to be the door.
Is it the door?
Yeah.
So, keep talking.
See, he's completely ruined my train of thought now. With
the length is the length. Oh, doors. Oh, I think what I can see is this. Is that what I could? I think that's what I could see.
I don't know, because you were seeing it.
I could see this like weird thing moving.
Oh my god! It's 103 Dalmatians.
Yeah, it is, because now it's not there. I can see the coat and what's left behind.
See, because from my angle, I can see it's like a weird dot, which I thought was the handle, but I realised it's actually probably your phone. People watching this have no idea what the hell we're pointing at. I'm just going like that, like, oh yeah, it's that.
That's actually the lens on the camera on the phone. This makes my face look even fatter. I'm taking this off.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Makes your face look gorgeous. Oh.
Anyway, so back to Hawkeye, very briefly, before we finish. Yeah, I think it's the right thing to do, though, isn't it? To make something the length it needs to be.
What's this?
Because I've got my hands in these now, so I'm gesturing. No dramatic license whatsoever. Yeah, so I like that about...
I will spay you.
Yeah, well... I like that about Disney Plus and Marvel and, you know, Mandalorian and all the rest of the other things. But what it does mean, so if you...
You take your hand out of those.
No, because this is so much fun for me. Don't know about you, but for me, this is hilarious. Anyway, I'll be a meme by morning. I won't, because we have 3 viewers. But...
You're right, Princess Bubblegum.
Me? Whatever, Melissa. That put me off. But we're basically halfway through the series. So it's only 6 episodes. We've now seen 3. So this is the halfway point. But what I was thinking was if you were right and future episodes are going to be only 30 minutes, as far as actual minutes goes, we're over halfway through. Because we've had a 49, a 51 and a 43. So it depends what future episodes' timings are actually, whether we're not... But, you know, episode count-wise, we're halfway through. Which just feels nuts. The fact that we started watching it last week and we're halfway through this season already.
Yes.
It's just a bit like, what? I know it's a busy year and everything, you know, but yeah, I honestly, I don't have any massive theories about where it's going. I have read various iterations from different comics and things that could be part of stuff, but I just don't know. Brilliant thing is, you get caught for an hour this a week and get to turn off. He has to live with me.